Hi, and welcome to United We Stream and She Said So Berlin's first collaboration. And what a better time to start the collaboration than to celebrate International Women's Day. My name is Lindy Delight. I am the founder of Delight Management. We are a artist, brand, and showcase management agency. I'm also the co-founder of Masks for Music, which is an initiative for the music industry to generate a bit of revenue during COVID times. And I'm also the founder of She Said So Berlin. For those of you who don't know about She Said So, we're a global network of women and gender minorities that aim to power all of us. So before I get into our topic today of intersectionality and social movements, I'm going to hand it over to our guests to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Irene Negrot, or Dani, for a better use of conversation. I'm a Venezuelan born Berlin-based artist. I'm mostly known as a performer, but I also work with production for theater, clubs, birthdays, baptisms. So that's who I am.
Hi, I'm Lakuti, and I'm a founder of Uzuri Bookings Artist Management, as well as Uzuri Recordings. I was born and raised in Johannesburg and moved to the UK, and I'm now based for the last 9 years in Berlin. And I'm also the founder of a newly formed music and culture platform alongside my partner Tamasumo called Bring Down the Walls.
Hello, my name is Mirka. I'm a curator and project manager. I'm the co-founder of Forward Like Waves, a creative agency based in Munich and Berlin. And I also co-founded Music by Women, which is the very network for women in music. And when I say women, I always mean non-binary and trans people as well, of course. And also a member of Music Women Germany, so the German-wide network for women in music. And I also co-founded an agency called Save the Dance, which is aiming to create safer spaces around club culture and music industry.
My name is Monty Luke. I'm a DJ, music producer, and label founder. Currently based in Berlin for the past 2.5 years. I'm originally from the United States. I spent 10 years in Detroit. Part of that time, I was working as Carl Craig's label manager at Planet 80 Communications. I started my own label, Black Catalog, during that time, and my hometown is Los Angeles, California, and I'm happy to be here.
So intersectionality involves the interconnected nature of categorizations used in society, such as race, gender, ability, class, age, and sexuality. When the label of intersectional is applied, it's generally to bring attention to the fact that a person is being discriminated against for more than one aspect of their identity. So I would like to go around our panel, and I'd like you to tell us what your own positioning is in terms of the words intersectionality. Lakuti?
That's quite a start. For me, it's important to kind of phrase it and bring it towards systemic discrimination more than your personal stuff, because what we're dealing with and the music industry itself runs as a system. So, yeah.
All right. How about Monty? What is your own positioning in terms of the word intersectionality?
Well, I mean, when you're thinking about the concept and to how, in what way to use it, and you're applying it to yourself, I mean, as a straight black male living in Germany, that's a lot to unpack, you know. And when you look at it in terms of, our music scene, and specifically electronic music scene, there are even some other sort of nuances that are, that I'm constantly trying to take into consideration in every aspect of what I'm doing. So yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's multifaceted, but I think the concept itself is very helpful it's a helpful way to sort of analyze the things that are going on.
Right. And what are your experiences as a straight black male in Berlin, in the music industry in Berlin?
You know, it's interesting because, you know, even when you break it down to like, even beyond sort of like the straight black male thing, you know, I'm also quote unquote from Detroit, you know, or, you know, from America, you know, and that has its own set of sort of like assumptions that people carry with them in our scene, even down to the kind of music they expect you to play and the kind of music they expect you to release and produce. You know, if it doesn't make sense to them because this guy's from Detroit, why is he doing this kind of stuff? You know, it has an effect,
right.
You know? So, but not to sort of bring it down to the personal, but, you know, in general, I think, you know, the notion of intersectional is like, you know, it's almost infinite, you know,
right.
can continually sort of like dissect things in that way.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. And how about for you, Mirka? What is your own positioning in terms of the word intersectionality?
I think in Germany, we're very much behind on that concept. I think we often talk about gender equality, and that usually means men and women being equal. And it doesn't mean non-binary people, it doesn't include trans people, it doesn't include people of color. Like, it doesn't really go beyond that very first step, and that makes me a little sad and also very angry, to be honest, because it's just so like old school, I guess, thinking, and you always have to explain to people why it isn't enough anymore to just talk about like those two genders being there and having equality or wanting equality. I think it's just very old-fashioned, and it's not enough anymore, and we think we need to take a step further and do more for everyone, and not just be like, okay, who's marginalized the most, or who are we now a part of, like, who am I, and is it enough to do something for people who are like me or who look like me or are described as me?
Yeah.
I mean, it's also, if I can interject,
Absolutely.
that you raise some really good points in that there is no hierarchy within any of these struggles, and it's quite amazing that we still at a point where we prioritize certain struggles over other ones, and they come from the same energy. They're all intertwined, and they should be looked at as one.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Areya, what's your opinion on this?
Well, I mean, as we are trying to become a more fair society, we have been encountering that in order to favor the most marginalized groups or the most looked over communities, we are finding that in order to bring this energy and this empower them, we have to also see like the divisions that this create within the communities, right? So,
okay, so how is intersectionality transforming our understanding of race, sexual orientation, social justice, and movement building in the music industry? And can you give us an example?
I really think that we kind of getting ahead of ourselves, because really, as far as the music industry goes, we're really at the beginning of having these discussions, and these discussions are continuing. You know, there is no, okay, I'm ticking a box, this is done. This is like a long-term commitment.
Absolutely.
In raising awareness, more importantly, in taking action to bring about those changes. And this is a long-term commitment. And we are at a very, very early stage. And I think we haven't even scratched the surface at the moment, to be honest.
Right. What do you think about this, Mirka?
I think if you look at like festival lineups, you can see how well ahead we are, like zero. I mean, the visibility for like women is very bad. The visibility for black women is worse.
Yeah.
The visibility for a black woman who is like disabled is like zero, less than zero.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not there. There's no person there you can see actually being representing that. So I think you can see that there's very little, like, we're talking now a lot about it, but it hasn't actually happened, and it's not happening unless we're getting like some real like quotas or other ways of forcing people to make a change, I think. So that needs to happen before anything changes.
Do you guys think that the answer is, like, where's the answer? Do we need, because when you peel back the matrix of the industry, and although there's been more awareness and more sort of visibility on these topics, when you peel back the matrix of all these events, all these lineups, all these initiatives, who's still controlling everything? You know, like,
Absolutely.
how's it, you know what I mean? Like, how does this really change if the basis of this entire system has not changed? So is that what we are looking to have change, or are we happy with just seeing these lineups change?
No. For me, I mean, it's very important that you say that, because I think in a lot of ways, what I'm seeing post George Floyd's murder, which is something that galvanized people to kind of do something, I think people are very literal with their approach to this. You know, it's, okay, we have to be seen to be doing something. Therefore, let me put a black person's face in a magazine. Let them do a podcast. But I think for me, that's not good enough, because we need all the structures within these organizations to deprogram themselves and to change, you know, and we need more diversity within kind of decision-making positions, rather, and positions of power. We need to see those changes. And I think once we see all these structural changes happening, then we will see kind of more concrete and meaningful change, rather than, let me just book whatever black face is there, you know?
But do you guys think enough of our scene really understands what intersectionality is? It's a term that's been used maybe for the past few years, but it's really rarely spoken about. It's really spoken about. So do you think that enough people in the industry actually get it?
I think, yet again, we need a lot of education. And also, it's very important that we don't get stuck with kind of words, because there's also kind of like a hierarchy, or kind of like who knows the word, who knows this. I think that's not important. The importance is kind of understanding what we are talking about. But right now, for me, I think education, and more education, because not much. We are the beginning of everything, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. And you mentioned as well, you know, like 5-6 years ago, it became at the top of everyone's priority to make sure that there was enough gender balance in the music industry. And now it feels like we are still in the process. Now that diversity and intersectionality have been added to the agenda, like, how do you see this playing out? Like, how do you see it playing out, especially now when there is programming going on for maybe streaming events, say like this, or even live stream DJ sets, and also the programming once the industry is allowed to start doing live events again? What do you think, Monty?
I think the cynical part of me says that with, you know, exactly like, you know, facets of racism, for example, like with back home, things don't change until people see the true benefit. And oftentimes what we're talking about here is money. Mm-hmm. So if and when people start to see there being some kind of benefit, maybe financially, to doing things in that way, maybe that will help spur on the real change. Right. I'm not sure. That's a slightly cynical response, but I'm just being honest. Yeah. You know, like, that's the cynical part of me responding to that.
Okay.
But the fun thing is, though, there's a study by McKinsey that actually shows, and I think they're only about gender equality, but I think it applies the same way to any diversity, that if men and women would work the same amount that the global GDP would rise $28 trillion. 26% or something like that. It's an insane amount of money.
Wow.
So if you're really thinking money, that's actually money. So we're not talking money, we're talking power, and power structures.
Yeah,
and that's a whole different
Okay.
problem set, because those people in power don't want to share their power and don't want to give away of their power to other people.
Right.
In itself, the very shift of power doesn't change the structure of the hierarchy that is causing the main problem. I mean, by seeing, I recently heard an artist mention that we are striving and we are aiming to empower women, and we are trying to empower the minorities, whereas we should learn how to disempower the authority. Take the notion that they have a power over us. First of all, educate them in order to be able to deal with all kinds of palettes of human being that there is, and in order for the minorities to have their own
Voice.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I know you mentioned already, you mentioned briefly, but there is this phenomenon of tokenism. You know, I hear people talking about labels now that are saying, or music labels saying that, you know, the next release that we have to have a woman of color. Or someone in a lineup that's programming a lineup says, oh, we have to make sure we book a trans artist. How does box ticking move us forward? Or does it at all? And what is your experience with tokenism? Lukuti?
I don't particularly feel that it moves us forward in any way or shape, because it makes things become a trend rather than meaningful things that we grow with.
Right.
And once the cameras are off, it's on to the next thing. You know, I think the idea is about real engagement.
Yeah.
And taking a real interest in learning about other, creative beings other than what we are exposed to within the Western frame. So I'm not really for tokenism, and it worries me that a lot of the actions that are currently happening will end up being just that.
Yeah.
And I think particularly what I see in a music industry kind of press is that it's almost like overnight white people have been replaced by black faces.
Yeah.
And without actually taking the steps to educate the readers as to why it is important to take these steps.
Exactly.
And these things actually manifest in a very negative way, as we've seen in social media, and I've seen a lot with the kind of more women getting booked, that there was a lot of resentment on social media coming from men that feel that their positions have been taken away, and there's some kind of conspiracy, to promote trans people, to promote women. And I think that there's a failure, because if you're not doing things in a meaningful way and in engaging and committing yourself to things, and it ends up being tokenism. So if you're gonna take on the task of upgrading or changing your organization, you need to be able to communicate that to the people that know you for something else.
Absolutely.
To why you are doing those steps. And this is something that needs to be constant rather than, okay, I'm making a statement now, we've overlooked a certain community and we're going to change. This is gradual, and it needs to be constantly happening.
Yep, absolutely. So Monty, do you have any experience with tokenism in your career?
I mean, the thing is about tokenism, there's definitely been things that have felt tokenist that I've turned down. But the thing that's so insidious about it is that, you never really know for sure because no one's coming to you straight up and being like, look, I mean, most of the time people aren't coming up to you and say, hey, look, we need a brother for this thing. Could you come through? You know, I mean, if I heard that, I just, I would turn it. But there's definitely been things semi-recently that I have turned down that have had that vibe to them because I know somebody else said no to something and then I get asked. So I know that it definitely when it happens, but it is insidious because as artists, we're here to create and to work. And when especially in times like this, when we get offered stuff, it's like we should be taking it, but also this is the added burden.
Is it for the
you
right
have
reasons?
to think about it being for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. I actually had an experience with this recently. I had never before, but I had a music company approach me and say, hey, Lindy, we are interested in maybe having you do some content for for one of our social channels. And I thought, okay, that sounds pretty nice. And then about 3 weeks later, I got a message or an email saying, so Lindy, we're going to put a hold on this. We're going to wait until International Women's Day or Black History Month, but we're going to need more people.
Wow.
And to be honest, I was caught off guard. I was super, super hurt. But then, can we really be angry about this? I know that it wasn't something malicious. I know it wasn't intended to be hurtful. So my question is, how does education play a role in diversifying our industry?
I mean, the thing is, it's this is the thing. And there's even a book about it. I forget the exact name of it. It'll probably come to me. But look, it's not my job.
Right, yeah.
It's not my job. It's not my job to educate anybody on this. Especially at this stage.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We're not kids. You know what I'm saying? This is a industry that is created by Black people, by, gay and trans people. You know what I mean? We are 30 odd years into things at this point. I shouldn't have to be educating people on this stuff.
Because it gets exhausting, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. It gets exhausting. And Mirka, what are your thoughts on how education can play a role?
I just want to go actually a step back because I actually, even though I agree, I hate tokenism because it's kind of like being used, and I don't like being used. At the same time, I also firmly believe in taking any spot I can because I feel visibility is important. Even though the people who are using you as a token, for them, I don't care. But for those people who I can show this could be you, and to show them, to give the visibility to someone else and not a white, straight man, I think that's such a big thing because you can only be a role model to someone else if you're there, if you're visible. Once J.D. Sampson gave a talk on a festival we did, and she said that often, because she has a band called, I always mix it up, Man or The Man, and there's a other band that is either Man or The Man, so they keep getting mixed up bookings, and it's an all-male band.
Right.
And she was like, I was thinking about if we should be doing those bookings or not, but we do, because she's like, take any spot you can, take any visibility you can.
Use them while they're using you?
I don't know if it's that true, but take your spot.
Yeah.
Just take your space and be there, be present.
Yeah.
And then if you're on a panel, for example, and you're feeling used, make a topic.
Yeah.
If the camera is rolling, make it a topic.
Yeah.
Just tell them, so why am I the only one here looking like that?
Yeah.
Use it against them and make them think about it and make them be accountable.
Absolutely. I like that.
I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with that.
Yeah, okay.
To be quite honest, because I think, there needs to be a thought in your head that is it doing more harm rather than good, and that should be the determining factor.
Right.
Because, and I think if you do not take up something, it's also really, maybe it's of value to whoever it is. Yes, I know it goes back to teaching. The reasons why you don't want to take it may be more useful to do that rather than, okay, I'm taking a spot and that's it. And in the meantime, I don't know, there's so many layers to these things and so many things you have to think about, and which is exhausting.
Yeah, but I guess your personal integrity should take the lead in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, double-edged sword. I mean, both of these are like, things that I go through sometimes when I'm asked these things, I think about that.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. It's like, that's my job. You know what I mean? Of course. Yeah. I'm going to take that spot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's like, why did they offer me that spot?
But then, white men who are really not that talented take spots all the time. They got them offered, not because they're any talent, but because they know a dude and I have a, but because they have their networks. And that's why is that okay? Like, why should I not take a spot? Even though those idiots who have like zero talent get all those possibilities and all that money thrown at them for not just being born. Literally. Like, why the fuck? Makes me angry.
Yeah, it's tough.
All right, so Mirka, in terms of intersectional feminism, how can white women use their privilege and awareness of structural discrimination to create change?
So first of all, I don't identify as women. I identify as non-binary. Okay. Just as a heads up. Yeah. But I think it's just always your responsibility to like reflect your privilege, like whoever you are, because everyone has a little bit more privilege than someone else. And so I think if you're like way up on the totem pole, more or less, it's your duty to actually see, what can I do for others who haven't got that power? Like, how can I help them advance? How can I maybe share my privilege? How can I talk to people about making changes so they can also have a spotlight? How can I help, I guess? I think it's really important, because if everyone would do that, then we would be like in a completely different society already.
Right. Absolutely. So I know, Lakuti, you had just mentioned how, George Floyd kind of created a resurgence of this whole Black Lives Matter movement. And then you see, like you said as well, media companies that move to all Black content. Also, a lot of music industry companies just started donating, and also saying, oh, now we're going to be doing diversity hiring. What do you think about these companies that are conveniently switching their focus at that time?
I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic that this is a right thing to do, but at the same time, I think it's not enough, And yet again, I think, as I mentioned before, the educational part should be coming from these organizations, and to clarify why is it that this is only happening now. Right. And I think this is extremely important, that, that process of checking in with yourself as to why these things have been neglected. And because I think to do that is to also come to terms with your own prejudices. Right. And this is a really integral step into moving forward. And yes, they should be doing what they're doing now and bringing about change, but it needs to be covered with educating and moving step by step with their followers, because what happens is people don't understand. They just feel, okay, here's this change. And the irony of it, I saw it with women, that a lot of guys didn't ask themselves, why is it that it's been all about men, but the gripes were, oh, this woman thing. Or now there's also the latest thing is this queer agenda, by the media. And I'm like, shouldn't you be asking yourself, why is it that these people were left out? Right. So there's a responsibility that comes with position. And if you choose to diversify your organization, it is up to you, the onus is on you, to then educate people around those things.
Absolutely, yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Monty?
As a white woman.
Yes.
Sorry, what was the question again?
It was just talking about how when Black Lives Matter started this, kind of had the resurgence, and then there was attention from all over the world, and this is the first time that I'd actually seen the world really come together like that, all at the same time, to be talking about the same thing. And then at the same time, you also saw all of the corporate companies jumping on board and donating to all these Black Lives Matter charities, and saying, oh, now we're going to be doing diversity hiring. Now we're switching our whole game plan. Like, it was a bit convenient. And also, as Lakuti was saying, that why now? So what are your thoughts on?
I mean, honestly, last year was the first time that it really seemed like white people started to actually see. Mm-hmm. Started to actually see. Mm-hmm. And so, like I was saying earlier, it just, I don't know how to answer your question, honestly.
Okay. Okay.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
This is a very complicated issue. But yeah, I mean, I feel like what Lakuti was saying, I agree with what Lakuti was saying. It's up to the organizations, once they have decided to go on this path, once they have decided this is something that they should have been doing all along, then that's where the education needs to follow. But I mean, again, I also agree with Lakuti. I mean, this is like, we are at the very, very beginning of this,
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are, I mean, this is the thing on everyone's lips, is like, how are things going to be different after? Mm-hmm. Will things be different after we're back in the clubs? And like I said earlier, just that matrix, the matrix is still there.
What do you predict will happen in the next 5-10 years when it comes to diversity and intersectionality?
Honestly, looking at how the kind of current existential crises and non-existential crises we're facing as a world, well, it's just thinking about where things are moving. It seems like we make one step forward and 20 steps back. I mean, we're in an era. We're still in an era of a kind of a figure like Trump. I mean, with him not being United States president doesn't mean anything, because that kind of ideal that he perpetuates are all over, also in Europe. There's so many things we need to think about, and it seems like they're all coming together, and how we move forward, really, for me, to be honest, it's a minefield, and also it's a question mark, because yes, there can be the will, but without actually putting in the work, because it's great to think, okay, change must happen. Yeah, we're going to change stuff. But unless you put in the work to ensure that it happens, I can't see how things will change.
Areya, do you have any predictions?
Well, yes.
Yeah? Good.
No, I understand that in the past decades we have seen a major shift in how we see in perceived society, how we perceive our own classifications of self.
Yeah.
So, and what has become a big wave of social media and conversation is also transforming into change. I see also of self-definition. So I guess we are finding at least points of conversation, and hopefully also find ways to, through self-awareness, also find new points of interaction. Yeah.
Perfect. Any thoughts here, Mirka?
I think there's like several points to that. I think one of them is that kind of like who will be left after COVID? Because of course, those who have been marginalized, women of color, other gender minorities, they're those people who already like earned a lot less money before, and they're probably like having a lot of trouble now. And the question is, who can like sustain that? Who can be still an artist? Who can be still a promoter? Who can be still a booker? I've so many friends who like changed careers already because they couldn't afford to.
Of course, yeah.
And didn't know how to continue on. And so we'll have to see about that. So there's going to be a very big need of actually supporting that. And I think like one thing we're looking into at the moment, doing like a legal hack into saying there's laws about gender equality or about diversity already in place, but how are they not being like actually applied?
Yeah.
So how can we like maybe work on that angle? And there's countries who are already doing that. So, like for example, Argentina is like doing a fine if you don't have I think 30% of females in the lineup, you'll have to give like 6% or so of your revenue as a fine.
Okay.
And that's a really good incentive to actually get going. And I think it could be the same way with any kind of intersectional diversity in this whole construct. And the same thing is with funding. The Music Board in Berlin actually is already doing that. They're saying if you want to have funding from us, you have to have a diverse lineup, you have to do 50-50 booking. And if you don't do that, we won't give you money.
Okay.
And that's an easy way to just say we're making change happen because this is federal money, government money. It needs to be used in a way that is actually up to the Constitution, up to law and all those things. And I think this is like the way where you can actually force change.
But can we change minds? I mean, I think for me, yes, it's important and that's great if that's happening. But I kind of feel that there needs to be more than that. I mean, I don't know if I'm too old or what, but there was an era, I'm in my 40s, there was an era where I felt that there was a certain seriousness that came with the craft of DJing, music, yes, there was a commercial aspect of it, but I feel that in the last few years, there was a hyper-commercialization of the scene, and it came with many problems, and I think there needs to be some balance in some ways where we value music beyond the financial kind of the currency that comes with it. And is that possible in 2021? I don't know.
Let's see. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about what the issues are, the systematic issues, the problems. But if we start thinking about solutions or maybe some possible suggestions for, say, not only promoters, but also artists themselves, booking agents, managers, PR, what are some solutions that they can do to move us forward and create change?
Me? Sure. I'll take that one. I think that a lot of this, I think we can move forward, and this is the West Coast in me coming out here, West Coast of the United States. I don't want to be, nationalist or whatever. I think a lot of these problems could possibly, one way to begin to solve a lot of these problems of inclusion is just getting together.
Yeah.
And getting to know one another and getting to know what is driving people's ambitions, what their likes and dislikes are, why are they doing what they're doing, and just getting together and getting to know each other. I just think, especially in this music, for example, I spent 10 years in Detroit. I mean, Detroit is like the perfect example of this. It's like there's so many producers, so many labels, but everyone's in their little silos doing their own little thing and not getting together, And I just think that, like, when we talk about inclusion, I just think that part of the issue is a lot of these people are just like in their little siloed worlds and they're just completely out of touch. And they have no idea what is going on. with anything other than like what the next festival is, and I gotta like make sure that I hit this bottom line, and like, you know. So I just think like one way we can move things forward is just like trying to like get together and like understand one another and
Right.
like see what we are each about.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these people in power right now they just don't do that because they're like all broed out.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's like the emic approach to culture. It's when you immerse yourself within a culture to actually understand.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you don't. You're just hearing from everybody else about that culture. But until you
Yeah.
actually get into it and take the time to get to know people and immerse yourself, you'll never really truly understand.
Yeah.
But what do you think some other solutions are, Aria, in terms of like what people in our industry can do? Artist managers, PR, anyone?
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree more with the sense of find the things that we have in common in order to create our own growth. I mean, it's sometimes as when you become so convinced of how what an outsider you are for the mainstream community. Basically, you also lose your sense of belief that changes are possible. So basically, to be able to have that hope again, basically, you have to reconnect with the community in order to be able to find that strength.
Great.
I mean, I also think that it's really important to realize, especially this is specifically to clubs, that for God's sake, we live in an entire planet with so much amazing music. Why is it that for the last 30 years we've been stuck at one point? You know, so for me, the changes that I want to see is clubs being spaces that are again open to experimentation, trying out new things, investing in new things, and taking an interest in opening things up. And because I think we stand to benefit as producers, as DJs, in diversifying the programming and, you know, realizing that there's a whole world out there.
Yeah.
And 4/4 is not the only musical form that we should be hearing in clubs. There's so many other things.
Yeah.
So I don't really, the mind boggles as to why this has not happened.
Yeah, but you know what? It seems like COVID has given us a perfect time to start rebuilding in this way. You know, when clubs are able to open again, are they going to be booking the same 10 artists for the program as they were before, or are they going to start investing? Or are they going to start investing in new talent and, like you said, experimenting with different styles of music?
Because I mean, I understand there's a lot of financial fears. You know, people want to book what they know, but those things became a thing because somebody invested in them. You know, so why is it that we cannot invest in things and commit to them and see them grow? I mean, that's what art is about, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, really, there's no for some of these, you know, venues and events that are, no matter what, going to pull in its X amount of people. There's really no excuse.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
they should be doing this kind of thing already.
Yeah.
You know, it's just. You know, as human beings, we get sort of in a rut, and you learn what works, and you tend to want to continue to kind of roll with that. Sometimes some people are just like that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like a lot of these clubs that are, you know, have lines in normal times, have lines around the block.
Yeah.
You know, they should be doing this stuff already, because what do they have to lose?
And
you know?
also, what worries me is that Black people will now be faced with the situation of, you have to assimilate to what we think is the cool thing, that, you know, and I think, honestly, a lot of deprogramming would have to happen, you know, in order for us to move forward, because we cannot expect people to just, you're going to fit into this,
right,
and that's that. There needs to be a give and take.
Yeah.
And a lot more communications, you know, as Monty mentioned, that it's not only about sitting there, the fee is this and that's that. There needs to be a little bit more
Concept
communication
behind it.
and like, who are you?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Let me see what you're doing.
Yeah.
How can we fit in a way that is kind of meaningful to us into what you're doing?
Right.
And to be quite honest, being an agent for so long, we try to do that, but a lot of the times people just want to move on. Okay, here, yes or no, there we go. But I think this is the way we do business needs to change as well.
I think we've really seen that. We've seen how unsustainable our industry has been. As soon as live events stopped, we saw how everything kind of fell apart. But like I said, hopefully this is a chance to rebuild in a way, or rebuild an industry the way that we think that it should be built, and also maybe creating more things ourselves, more inclusive events. We can be the creators of all of this as well.
But do you really believe that? Because I'm actually afraid it'll go the other way around.
Yeah.
Well, because just thinking about live industry, when it starts up again, all the big artists will be getting they're gonna tour the whole year, the whole 2022 is gonna be booked by big artists, and the newcomers, they will have no chance to go on tour because people only go to shows once or twice a week, maybe. And there's not going to be a lot of possibilities and options to actually get smaller artists actually on, and it'll take a couple of years to normalize it again, even if we can catch up.
Yeah, I understand that point of view, but also I see the point of view of there's a lot of really young talent right now. You see when you're watching some of the live streams, the young kids playing, that acid techno, the really hard techno, those kids have a massive following. And the kids are actually the ones that are going to be spending their money. So I kind of see, I can see how there could be a younger generation, a big influx of younger generation artists coming up at the same time.
Maybe on DJing. I think DJ culture is a little different to
that's true.
bands, shows, and I think there's more flexibility maybe. But then again, you also have a lot of big DJ names who want to go play shows. Yeah. And if you have a choice between a really well-established act and a newcomer, even though they have a massive following, I don't know. Like DJing is not my area of expertise.
I mean, also we do need to move away from Facebook clicks and likes, because I think this is a problem that has really kind of degraded the scene, to be honest, in many ways, because for me personally, music is communication. Music, if done properly, can change the world, and there needs to be some level of seriousness in what we do. It shouldn't be based on how you look, your age, and how many bought or not bought clicks you have. This is ridiculous that an industry can be built on this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that what you guys are saying is that when things start back up, I mean, the answer is either it's going to be nothing but big DJs playing, or it's going to be like little DJ. Well, what I think is going to happen is that.
I'm so curious.
Basically, what it's pointing towards is just like a massive further fragmentation of our scene. And so, because these new kids are on the come up, and there's no stopping that. But at the same time, these promoters and events and bigger name DJs still need to work and eat. Yeah. And there's that whole money situation going on with that too. So what's going to happen is it's going to be further fragmentation of the scene, I think, moving forward.
I mean, I think you're right, but also I think it's so important at some point. I think one of the missing links, I see a big division between older and younger artists, in that, of course, the younger ones want their time, whilst the older ones saying this is ours, and this is an issue that is becoming very kind of pronounced at the moment for me, and it's something that I see quite a lot. And I think this is really such a shame, because there is so much value into everybody coming together, as you said, because yes, there's a lot to draw from experience. You cannot buy experience, you cannot undervalue experience, but that experience cannot come with arrogance, because if we want to sustain the scene, we need to be encouraging younger people and opening the doors to younger people to be a part of it. So I don't know. I just sometimes wish that people would be brought together, their heads knocked together into sense, common sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite a fascinating time to be living.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny too, just getting back to our topic, intersectionality, it just seems like we are in a time that is just, everything is intersectional, you know? And, you know, even down to, I mean, just everything, it's just, is you know, and in general, that's good. There's more, that means that there's more awareness of our sort of differences and our, in a sense, it's good, because I know that the framework is really based on sort of privilege versus sort of like discrimination. But, you know, when you're looking at the intersections themselves, it's fascinating to me because, you know, you realize just how diverse things really are. And it's really, it's cool that there's now finally being a sort of like an acknowledgement of all this stuff, especially in our industry, even though, you know, we started at a certain point and it became sort of like vanilla, and now we're getting back to the point to where it's getting less vanilla again.
But also, I mean, within different sectors, you know, because I mean, for myself as a Black woman who identifies as queer, I'm not necessarily identifying with the LGBTIQ community all the time, because I think there's massive racism which is never addressed within the LGBTIQ community. There's so much to unpack and to break down, and there's a lot to do, basically, you know.
All right.
Wow.
Well, yeah, this is a very complex topic. We could probably talk about it for a lot longer. Is there anything else that anyone wants to mention about our topic, or anything else before we sign off?
I think we should start a podcast.
Yeah? We can.
You just want to hang out.
We create. We
with a
create.
COVID test.
We create something special, something new together. Yeah. Well, I guess that is it for us today.
Actually, I would like to say
Okay,
something.
never mind.
Because actually,
that.
we're actually planning a big event called Network the Networks, because it's kind of like part of trying to find solutions that like include all kinds of perspectives. So
This is what we need, solutions.
Yeah, so we're starting with the German edition on April 21st as part of Zip-Hop.
Okay.
And we're inviting all networks that are part of Diversity Women in Music to actually basically co-create together events that pick out certain topics they want to like delve into further in workshops, panels, talks, roundtables, whatever they feel like is a good idea, and actually connect them to each other so they'll work together in groups of networks and not just like one network. And there's going to be an open call, and everyone is invited to participate.
Okay. And what's it called again, sorry?
Network the Networks.
Network the Networks.
There's not a link yet, but it's coming these days.
Okay.
It's just fresh. And hopefully we're going to have an international edition at the end of this year.
Perfect. Exciting. Okay. We all set? Yeah? All right. So I absolutely want to thank all of you for being a part of this very important and relevant conversation today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. And I want to thank United We Stream and also the She Said So Global and Berlin communities. Also to Riverside Studios, thanks so much for hosting us. It's been a pleasure to stay here and be hosted in this very creative space. And I want to thank everyone for watching, and I hope that you've taken some really great knowledge and insight from this conversation and are able to create some change in your own communities. So thank you, and happy Women's Day.